Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm super excited to introduce Lou DeCola today. I actually got a sneak preview. We were just kind of having a discussion before we pushed record, and he's got a lot for you guys. So let me tell you a little bit about him. He's the owner of DeCola Salon in Exton, Pennsylvania, an award-winning salon named one of the top 200 salons in the nation for 5 years in a row. With over 42 years in the beauty industry, Lou has built a career defined by innovation, leadership, and a passion for helping others succeed. He started as a sole proprietor in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and over the years, his drive and talent have led to standout accomplishments, developing his own hair care line and expanding its reach on QVC, being featured in publications like Mainline Today and Philadelphia Magazine, and providing hair and makeup for TV shows such as The Makeover Story and 10 Show. Lou is also a respected voice in the industry, regularly speaking at major salon shows across the country and offering private consulting for salon owners nationwide. His honest, direct approach helps businesses grow with real-world strategies that work. In addition to consulting, Lou has delivered countless education seminars for stylists, sharing both technical skills and business know-how to help build successful, lasting careers. So, welcome, Lou.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
We are so glad. So, something we like to start after the bio. I feel like that's kind of the highlight reel, but 42 years of experience in the beauty industry. So let's start back to where that started and how we got here. Did you always know you wanted to go into this industry, or did you stumble upon it?
I stumbled upon it. I went to college for about 3 months for architecture, and I did not like to continue school. So I went home, and my parents said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "Well, my cousin Vinny's a barber, and my godfather's a hairdresser, and my other cousin's a hairdresser." I said, "I'll go work for them." And that's where it started at 17 years old. And then I just worked for my cousin, did a 2 year apprenticeship, took my barber test, took my cosmetology test. And then after about 4 years, I decided I wanted to do my own thing and opened my first salon in 1989 with just myself. And then it just kind of grew from there. Um, you know, I've always been in education, learning. You never stop learning. Um, Even last week when I was in the show teaching classes, I actually sat in classes and learned some stuff and took some takeaways. But that's how it grew, and just mentoring people and being honest. I don't have what they call an inner monologue, so I don't think about what I have to say. I just say it. So it's a good trait and a bad trait, I guess, sometimes. Um, but that's how I kind of just started growing my business, and over the years, just kept leveling up in that aspect. And then here I am today, 42 years later, still
I love
learning, still educated.
I love that, you're still in education. I think we always can be learning. But before we dive into, talking about culture and employees, how did in these years of owning a salon, did you stumble into developing a product and now a salon coach for those salon owners that are interested in that?
So let the little secret out of the bag, right? There's only so many different ways to make products. So when you find a manufacturer and you got to brand it, okay, that's the big secret, right? There's only so many different ways you can make a product. You can add tweak here, tweak there, and what I found was that if we market it, and at that point, and when I did that, that was 2001. I started selling in our own salon, and then I was also involved in the jewelry business. Yeah, I'm multiple entrepreneurs, so I was in the jewelry business, and I used to have some of my jewelry showcases at other salons, and I leveraged that into, hey, I have a product line. You can buy it at almost manufacturer's number. You get a 3x markup on it, and I had my product in other salons. So I had distribution, and then
Mhm.
QVC was a local to us in Westchester, and a couple of my clients were hosts, and some of them were buyers, and were like, "What are you doing with your product? Give us the story." And that's when I came up with the brand and the story of my biggest selling product was called Behave, and it was a botanical leave-in conditioner, which I still have today, and it could you could use blow your hair straight, leave it curly. It was like multifaceted, and it was like
Hmm.
instant gratification. So the risk was at that point taking, I had to have 10,000 units in QVC that I had to own.
Wow, yeah.
But I already had distribution with other salons. So I really didn't, I looked at it as a way of saying, you know what? Let me invest this money. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work, it fails. And for the next 2 years, I have enough product to give to the salons that already buy from me. Um, but we did that. We went on the air and it was crazy. It's live TV, no recording. It's live. And you have tickers and we're doing like $8,000 a minute. And you have a
Holy
6 8 minute
cow.
show. It was really powerful. And their business model back then was good because what it was QVC. They put up the airtime, you put up the product, and you split the profits. Now it's changed because now they want brand recognition, and now they go to Panasonic and these other big brands already, and they say, okay, give us a product, just use your product you have, but make it exclusive for QVC, and that's what they do now. So the business model has changed,
Hmm.
so it's a little different nowadays. But that's just my entrepreneurial spirit, just doing things and jumping in and saying, you know what's the worst can happen? Doesn't work, get back up, and try something again. So that's how that evolved. And then with my coaching and with my mentoring, just watching my team grow over the years of instilling the practices that we do, and being a successful salon owner, people were coming to me, how do you do it? And my thing I always went back to was my people. You can have the best policies, the best things here, but you have to have the best people, and you have to believe in your people and create a culture where everyone feels like they have value. And then that's what kind of supports
Hmm.
your team. Um, Again, I mean the in my class I was talking the other day, I'm the new towel guy at the salon. I got a multi-million-dollar salon, but I'm doing towels right now because my towel guy didn't show up, and now I'm doing towels. But in the end, that shows my team that, I'm not just an owner. I'll do whatever it takes to make I'm a team player.
Hmm.
Uh, Now that's not going to last forever. I want to get a towel guy again, but for the time being, it just helps your team show support. That you're willing to do anything, and they believe it. And believe in what you do. So
I
just
have so
share
many,
knowledge.
so many questions I want to ask you. The first one is, first of all, why do you not have your own washer and dryer and do your own towels? Are you saving money by having a towel guy? We need to hear this because we have so many locations and they're always broken. The washer and dryers are always broken.
So yeah, so there's a twofold to it. One is I really don't have the space. I have my building is a 4,400 square foot old farmhouse. So it's tough to have a full, and when you have, we have 18 chairs, we have 42 employees, that many towels, you
Wow.
need two washers, two dryers. I don't have the spots. I don't have the space for that. So a towel service makes it easier um, for your team and for you. It's expensive. It costs me about 25,000 a year to have a towel service.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, but that's how much towels you're going through and the volume you're going through. Um, so you can dive down to it and say, okay, well, if I put a washer dryer in and spend 4,000 for washer dryers, if I had the space, now I have to find somebody to hope that the
Yeah.
towels. You go back to the culture. Nobody wants to do it. It's the menial job. If you're paying somebody
Right.
$10 an hour, factor that in to your whole cost. And what are you really saving if I have a towel service versus if I have a washer dryer?
Hmm.
Now, I believe I have a washer dryer for backup, emergency stuff like that, but not as an everyday practice because, again, on the financial end of it, if you have, a $10 an hour person working 40 hours a week, it's $400 a week doing towels, plus your washer dryer, plus your detergents, all that stuff there. So, $400 a week is 20,000 a year, plus your washer dryer wear and tear, breaks down, all that stuff there. Or you pay somebody, they pick them up, use their stuff, drop them off, fold them. So it's kind of a, you know,
Huh.
just a numbers thing in your
I
head saying,
love
what's the
it.
value?
What's the value? Exactly. Yeah, I was hearing more about this. I was like, oh, I have to tell Sean about this. This is pretty exciting. I love it. So, and I do want to jump into because I love when you're talking about QVC because we have a lot of our graduates in our cosmetology schools that say, I want to own my own product. So give advice, give advice to that person right now that's saying, I want to start my own product line.
Oh yeah, I think it's great. I mean, if you can do it, you're probably going to fail, but then get up and try it again. My biggest tip to them would be have distribution first. Make sure you have to have something. You need a story, right? That's the biggest thing with any product, and that was the thing. Back then it was my brother and myself. We were two local guys. We were in the hair business, and we had a little bit of a story with our products also worked, but you need to have some kind of story. You have the best product in the world, but if there's no story behind it, nobody cares. So, and it's not cheap to develop your own product line. It would probably cost somebody probably 100, 200,000 bucks just to get started nowadays. And I think there's so many different venues, different avenues you can go to. So if you started your career as a hairdresser, you became very successful, then you had a brand. You already have a brand as a hairdresser, now you can have a brand as a product. So I already had a salon called DeCola, and we had, a big salon. We had a couple locations. I had the product in my in the building, so we had some name recognition already. It was an easier sell. It was that kind of. So walk before you run would be my advice, and get yourself established in the career as a hairdresser, as a stylist, and then you can kind of develop that way. Just look at the market, what's out there, and all these. Look how many brands come in and fail that have big money behind them. The ones that succeed that they're all marketed correctly. You go back to a lot of things and say, how many product manufacturers are there, manufacturing facilities? Not many. Where I was manufacturing my product, they probably had another 30, 40 different product lines that they were making. So, it's just that I would recommend them get in the industry, get your name out there first, and then you can develop a product. But it has to have instant gratification.
I love that. Yeah, get your name out there first and then develop a product, and maybe just one at a time.
One at a time. Yeah. Listen, I mean, I'll give a shout out to a product that I used to use all the time. It was called In Common. They had one product. It was the best product there, that they had. Now they have since been, they've tried to come out with other shampoos, conditioners, but this is a leave-in product, and nothing else ever took off except for their one product.
Wow, interesting. Well, you've been obviously one of the top 200 salons, and you said something, and it's also in your bio, and I want to talk about we mainly focus on leadership for salon owners. And so when Sean and I coach one-on-one, we always know that everything rises and falls on leadership. And so obviously you've been an incredible leader. And I think it's because that number one thing you said, you believe in your people. Let's start with that, because I think the number one challenge I see with leaders is that they believe in themselves, but they don't believe in their people. Talk through that process.
I mean, I'm only as good as my team. Okay. Like you said, the mentality of it is I'm not number one. Okay. I might be on the top, but I'm not number one, because if I believe in my team and I help them grow and educate and teach them their own self-value, because that's probably the biggest hurdle that I find mentoring young stylists and even some mature stylists, is them knowing what their worth and their value is in the industry. They always say, oh, my client can't afford it. And they go into that aspect and teach them value. You're valuable. They're sitting in your chair for this reason. And the only way I became successful was by having a successful team. The better they do, the better I do, not vice versa. So that's what I really try to instill in my team is, show them what their value is. Don't talk about price, talk about value. If you, it's perception. So if you perceive that I have value, you'll pay anything. And if you perceive I don't have any value, you give me $1 is too much. So if you start to show your team what they're actually worth and why people come to them, what I feel about them, I care about my people. I know everything about them. They can walk into the salon today and I'm like, hey, Tina, what's going on? Nothing, but I'm good. Oh, no. Something's going on. If you really believe in your people and you know your people, everyone has problems, everyone has struggles. And if you can help them through struggles and give them some direction, not that you're always correct, but sometimes they just need an ear. One of the best I know that I do the right thing sometimes, because I had a gentleman quit. He it was about 3 years ago. He came into the office. He's like, he was an assistant, became a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 stylist, and he came to me and says, "I'm going to go work for my friend." I said to him straight out, I said, "Also, it's a bad idea. Not because you want to leave me, but working for your friend." So he left. He went to work with this girl, and 2 months later, she let him go. So he called me up on the phone, and all he wanted to do was talk to me. Didn't want his job back. He said, "I need some new advice. I need to know what to do with my life. Can I spend an hour or half an hour? Do you have time for me?" I said, "Absolutely." Came into my office and he said, "What do I do?" I said, "Do I go back to hair?" I said, "I don't know. I can't tell you that. What do you want to do?" Take some time. And we had just a general conversation. This is a guy that doesn't work for me anymore and wanted to come talk to me about life. And then he's now actually, he was actually in the salon last 2 nights ago. One of my people that cut his hair, he's selling cars right now, or in service. And he's like, "I think I might want to come back." My door's always open, but that just knows that I gave a value to somebody in life. And and whatever he does, whether he becomes a car salesman, whatever he does, that's more important to me than just having a stylist with me. So that's just it's just my belief. I'm just real. I mean, I guess that's the best way to say it. I care.
A beautiful quality, and but it's a very rare quality. And then something else you said in your bio, and I think this is what makes you so successful, is you have an honest, direct approach. But first you have to believe in people, but honest, direct approach. And I think that's huge, because I think so many times when we're training our leaders in our salons and also salon owners, they are more fluff leaders, and they don't really know how to build those solid, appropriate relationships, and they don't know how to confront, so to speak, with honest and directness, right? They just keep skirting around the issue, or worse yet, they become passive aggressive and don't share anything at all and talk to their team. And I know this is why you're so successful. And people want this. They want accountability. They want you to just be a straight shooter, right? I don't care what generation you're in. People want this. Talk through that process and educate salon owners and leaders why this is imperative.
Well, I mean, everyone's guilty of that, right? We all have a heart. I have a heart too, and that's one of my biggest downfalls probably is I give too much of a benefit of the doubt to someone because I see the good in them over the bad. But,
Right.
Being honest with someone, again, everything's different today. It's not different, it's the same, doesn't make a difference. Having that conversation with someone, even as far as going to dress, I'll use dress code because that's probably a lot of salon owners' big problems. Oh, these kids don't dress the way we used to, whatever it may be. But, so my approach is more of, I'm actually having a staff meeting next week, and it's going to come up. We're going to use ChatGPT AI in our meeting about dress code. The value you put in it is, okay, go back to perception. So if someone comes in and they're in a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans, my conversation is not going to be, "You look like crap." My conversation would be like, "You have Janie coming in or Tina coming in. They're going to spend $350, $400 to do their hair. Do you think you're presentable enough? Do you think do you think that you look like you have value, of a perceived value? Like just your approach is all of it. It's honest, it's direct. I don't have a strict dress code at my facility. I believe we're all artists, so I try to instill be creative, be artist, be who you are. Don't be in a box. But I also have a thing called 2 out of 3, which means hair, makeup, dress. Need 2 out of 3. The psychology behind that is that if you're doing your hair and makeup, you're going to dress nice. If your dress is nice and your hair is done, you're going to do your makeup. So it's almost like a psychological kind of thing that way. Same thing with performance. All this, when someone comes to me and says, that they want to make more money, they want to move to the next level, we'll have honest conversations. What are you doing? Are your numbers there? Are you rebooking people? What's your return rate? Or do you have redos? And, they're conversations that people don't want to really have because I do use it more of constructive than detrimental. So it's a constructive conversation. Hey, Tina, you need to work on, you've had 4 redos in the past 3 months on highlights. Maybe we do a highlighting class. Educate. I usually find that the gap is in education. them not knowing what to do, even in social skills and anything. And if you know your people and someone's struggling with I call it chair presence. They're not talking to their clients. So, let's have better chair presence. The reason why you're not building is X, or, dive even deeper. Like if you really care about your team and all of a sudden you have a team member that's not really growing, take a big picture and look at why. And then ask them the question, why do you think you're not building? Why are you not growing? Why are you not tearing up? And listen to them, not to give an answer, listen to them to help them. And we always have that problem. We listen because we got the answer. No, listen. And you'll usually find out the root to all the issues. I had an issue yesterday with one of my team members. She's a great stylist, and she doesn't like one of the toner brands that we carry. It doesn't work. It doesn't do this. And I'm like, so I said, explain it to me. Why doesn't it work? And she's like, well, if I have one client with her hair is really porous and I put 8N on it, it looks like a 6, and then I put an 8N on the other client, it looks like an 8N. Why? I said, you just answered your own question. It's not the product. It's the palette you're starting with. So now in turn, what we're doing with her, I'm going to send her to a color class for 2 days. She's a great stylist, but she's got the mental block. She hasn't been away to education in a while. So that's whether she still likes whether she likes a toner or not, I don't care. It's more about getting her back on track of, it's not about the product. It's about what are we doing? It's more about her. And if I empower her and she become, now she's more in tune to what she's doing, I invested in her some more. Now she's going to become even a bigger advocate of what we do. And then next year she'll probably love the toner line, because all these manufacturers spend hundreds of millions of dollars developing a product. And if it says sit for 20 minutes, doesn't mean take it off in 10. It means sit for 20. So, that's the kind of thing that I always look back at. What's the real issue? And let them speak. And they will tell, just like when you do a consultation as a stylist. If a client comes in and they're just saying, hey, what are we doing today? They don't know. But if you ask them, what are your challenges? What's happening? Oh, my hair's dry, my hair's frizzy, it's too blonde. They give you all the answers. Same with your team members. Ask them what's going on. How can I help? What's happening? What's going on in your life? They could be going through a divorce, married, whatever it may be, broke up with their boyfriend, got a new boyfriend, they're broke, they lost, whatever. So if you find out what makes them tick and what's really involved, that's your ticket. Truly caring. That's it. You're not prying, but you have to engage a little bit, I guess is the best word. Engage with your team.
Yeah.
So I hope I answered that question.
So big. And I love that you said, what's the real issue? What's the real
issue?
We call that double clicking, constantly, asking better questions. I don't want to skate past what you talked about with dress code, because when I heard you speak at the Pennsylvania Hair Show, this was everyone's favorite. And it was basically, correct me if I'm wrong, so you would say, if you want to be a $250,000 a year hairstylist, you type it into Chat GPT and say, what should I wear as a hairdresser? And it actually shows you pictures and where to order those clothes.
Yeah, so you have to give it good prompts and say, hey, I am a hairdresser in this location. This is what I charge. This is what I do. Can you give me 5 outfits for the week? My budget is XYZ. I don't like to wear all black. Detail it down, and the AI will give you all that. And now what we're going to try to do with our team is prompt GPT with our stuff, give a parameter to say, you can take a picture of yourself. Is this okay to wear to work? Yeah. And then hope, so we're working on the prompts to do that, but that's like, it's a big thing. Like you can't expect to go to a black tie affair in a pair of sweatpants.
Yeah.
I mean,
you attract who you are. That's just it. Yeah.
So that's what I say to our people is like, if you want to do fashion colors, you better have fashion colors in your hair. You can't have, you attract what you are. So if you dress like a bum, you're going to attract a bum, for lack of better words. If you dress professional, you're going to dress professional. Like if you want the high end ticket clients, you better look at a high ticket hairdresser. It's just the way, that's
Yeah, and
That's the honest reality of it.
it's so big, and that starts at the school level, and it's just better education, and giving our students better education when it comes to that. So, and I think at this point, we've become so exhausted that we've kind of lost that passion for educating when it comes to dress code. So you definitely reignited my passion with that. And then I do want you to touch on when you said chair presence, because I was talking to one salon owner recently, and she said, I know the reason why my stylist is not building her clientele because her rebooking rates are really low. And it was basically, she didn't say this word, but it's the chair presence. She doesn't know how to talk to her guests. She's not connecting with her guests, and she's just she's like taking orders. And that's it.
Yes.
And then the client's gone. Can you talk about how you recommend to educate stylists on chair presence?
So, it's kind of, um, I'll go back a step because I'd rather hire someone on personality and chair presence than technique. I can teach you the technique. You can't teach someone to be personable.
Mm,
You can do a little bit, but like
gotcha.
I'd rather hire a bad hairdresser, bad technical hairdresser with great chair presence than a great hairdresser with bad chair presence. Because I tell a story about a girl, the best
Okay.
hairdresser I ever had work for me. Her name was Terry, and she was the best hairdresser I've ever seen. Could never build a book because she would never talk to her clients. And I would say to her, Terry, you got to communicate with them. And she would never do it. She's out of the business, but she was the best technical hairdresser I've ever seen. And
Wow.
then,
Yeah.
you know, so the one thing I try to teach my younger team is like, if you're putting fools on or you're doing a color and if you're not double booked, especially when you're first starting, you're not double booked, spend time with that client. Like, do not leave them. Don't go into the broke room. I call it the broke room,
Yeah,
not the break room. Don't go into the broke
exactly.
room and sit there for 20 minutes. Oh, she's got 20 minutes left. Well, do you know anything about her? You know, that's probably the hardest thing to teach someone is spend that quality time with that client because, hey Tina, so you married? Yeah, my husband, I have 3 kids. Well, where do they go? It's a whole big client pool. You're also building a relationship. And what I found is that if you have a relationship with your client, if something goes wrong, they're going to call you. Hey, Lou, I don't like my haircut. Can you fix it? Lou, I don't like my color. Can you fix it? Absolutely. If you don't have that relationship, they're not calling your salon. They're not calling you. They're going down the street, and then the next you know, you're done. So, I would just more or less. You don't want to make a requirement, but like I constantly coach on them. Like I'll walk into the break room. Hey, what do you guys got going on here? If they're sitting in there, oh, my clients are there. Well, I walked out there. Have you offered her coffee, water, magazine? Just make small talk if you have to.
Yeah.
The weather's always an easy one. If you don't remember, okay, nowadays everyone has software. Back in the day, we used to have index cards if you didn't remember somebody. Lou, he works here. He's got this. You have it in the thing. All of a sudden, I see, oh, Sean's coming in. Oh, yeah. Oh, Sean likes motors. Hey, Sean, how's the motorcycle doing? I didn't remember had a motorcycle. And that's kind of like the technique you got to kind of work with your people. Role play. They can use chat. So this is the crazy thing about AI anymore. They can use Chat GPT to role play with a customer. I'm having a tough time having a conversation with my client.
Love it.
Can you help me?
Hmm.
What questions can I answer? And stuff like that. Um, Now, don't get me wrong. There's always a client that wants to come in and they want decompression time and they want to read their book or whatever it is, and that's okay. But
Right.
that's the one off,
That's me.
right? But you're the one off. Usually,
Yep.
the
Yep.
pushback from your staff is like, oh, they don't want to talk to us. They just want to go on their phone. No, 1% of the people do. Everyone else
Yeah.
they want to know what's going on. They like the action of the salon.
Hmm.
Uh, So again, I would go back to AI, and hey, listen, I'm having a tough time. My client doesn't want to talk to me. What questions can I ask her? Ask her? She's, or he, whatever. It's powerful, and we are really going to start using it in my salon more and more on that stuff there. And I haven't figured a KPI to tie to it, but I'm gonna pay for the paid subscription for my people. Everyone, it's like $25 a month, but
Hmm.
I have to figure a KPI I want to attach to it that I'll pay for it. If you use it for business, blah blah blah. If you don't, then I'm not paying for it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
but it will give them a tool to help with that situation there
Yeah.
where your team's having trouble communicating with building better chair presence. I I'll tell another story. I had another guy. He was a cross-dresser that worked for me, right? And he would be drag on the weekends, and he'd come to work regular. And I'm like, David, do you want to be crazy and really build a book? Come in drag one day. Just come in and work like that. People will be like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And like, and create that. He never did it, and since he's not doing hair anymore, neither. He's out of the business. Um, but like the same. So if you do something, if you're dressed nice every day, your clients are going to say, "Oh my God, I love your outfit." Oh, there's an opening. Oh, I got this at Target. I got that here. I got it there. Your
Yeah.
communications. But if you don't look like you have chair presence, if you don't dress well, nobody's gonna say, "Hey, where'd you get the backwards hat and a pair of sweats?" Nobody cares. You know, you guys know how it is, right? You always want to talk to somebody that you think is, for lack of better words, impresses you or you want to be like, you emulate. We emulate. We're humans. We emulate what we want to be like. So that would be a way that I would go. Chat
For,
GPT.
for sure. So we could stay here and talk for hours because we haven't
Yeah.
even gotten to some of the things that I wanted to ask about. So we'll save that for next time we have you back,
Yeah.
which will be very soon. But something that I wanted to hit on real quick as we kind of wrap this up, as you were talking in the beginning, right before we jumped on here, about culture and the fear that owners have of having their stylist leave. And I just want you to go back into that and kind of share your thoughts on that, because I think that a lot of us get put in that position where we live in that
Held hostage.
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, right. So that's every salon owner's fear. They've grown their salon, they're busy, they built these stylists up, and all of a sudden they're making, I'll use the numbers $200,000 as your top performer, and they think they're the fascination or perception is that if they're paying them 50% commission, they're making 100 grand as a salon owner. You're not. By the time you pay, the tangible issues with this, and this is where I try to break the fear down from these guys. The tangible issues are, commission, payroll taxes, benefits, supplies, rent, insurance, missed, all that stuff there. They're real numbers. Any other coach is going to turn around and give you a form to fill out and say, here it is, here, this is blah, blah, blah. Hey, you netted 65 grand off the 200. I dig deeper and say, what about the intangibles? Okay.
Mm.
People say, what's the intangibles? Well, how much time are you using, are you spending on cultivating this person because they're coming in a half an hour late. They need another assistant. They complain about this, and you're spending all this time. And I broke it down to, kind of like just a rare number of, um, you know, I gave a minimal cost of a salon owner. What's your value? I put $100. Okay. Any salon owner knows that their time should be worth more. My time is more than $100 an hour.
Mm.
And when you put that in there, you're going to spend probably about 400 hours 400 hours a year, maybe somewhere in there, 8 to 10 hours a week working with this $200,000 stylist. So put that value in there, deduct that off your cost, you're going to end up netting about $13,000 off of the 200 grand. I think I could share my screen. Hold on, let me see if I can.
Oh,
That's
I
so
have a.
good.
Hold on, let me see. I don't know how do I share a screen here.
it should be down at the bottom. Just made you a co-host.
All right, down the bottom. Host tools, maybe.
Just press share.
Where's share? Oh, share screen. Okay, all right. Let me go to this here. Did it do it?
Not yet. Click share and then click on it and then press share again.
Let me go here. Let me make sure it's up here. This one here. Clicked on that. Now go here and click share again. I'm new to this kind of stuff here.
I know worries.
All right, let's see if that's shared
There we
now.
go.
Yep, it's
There
shared.
there we
Okay.
Yep.
go.
Love
All
it.
right, so this is the breakdown that I kind of do is it's and these are just kind of average numbers, but like your intangibles, right? Where your commissions, and I put it next to a $100,000 stylist that you're probably paying 45% commission. And when you get down to the bottom of it, in the beginning, your total net profit 65,000 for a 200 and 36 for a 100. But then you go down to owner's time burden, right? 8 to 10 hours a week, rule bending, conflict management, all that stuff there. Whereas, and for a salon owner too, you're in a I go back to, you're in a negative mind space now. You're dealing
Yeah.
with rule that you're in a negative vibe. You're not happy. You're dealing with this issue. Go over to the other $100,000 stylist, and now you're mentoring, you're developing. It's something you want to do. You're happy. You're engaging, and that's 1 to 2 hours a week. So you get so you end up with a better team culture. You're more supportive. It's uplifting. Go back to the $200,000 stylist. It's resentment. It's entitlement. All that stuff there. So go back into the mindset. Coachable mindsets for a high performer. It's going to be coachable is going to be low. They know it all. A 100,000 growing, they want to learn. What else you got for me? How can I do this? What can we do there? Go back to alignment with our vision. Are we looking to continue to grow? The $200,000 stylist is like, I'm good, whatever. I'm making my money. I don't care. Where your young one is like, hey man, how can I get to that level? And I believe if you can culture, again, I'm using these two examples as your $200,000 stylist is a problem, and you're scared they're going to leave, but they're a problem. You have a $200,000 stylist that is working like the $100,000 stylist. That's great. That's what we're trying to cultivate with the younger ones, is put this culture into these guys and create that. And I'm very fortunate in my place. I have performers like this, but I don't have the negative mindset with them, which is great. So, and you replace it right. When you have your owner feels hostage that I'm going to lose this $200,000 in revenue. When you break it down, you're losing 13 grand to 23 grand, in that aspect. Our industry sharing it for profit margin is, 10 to 15%. You're making six to 11 on that. Your $100,000 stylist, you're 26 to 30%. I want that number.
Nice.
I want that
Yeah.
number. I want that employee,
Yeah.
and if you can cultivate and have that culture and build that person and instill in them as they grow, then that's what you want. And that's kind of why I've never poached a stylist from any salon ever. Never did, never will. Don't believe in it. But if you turn around and somebody walks in my front door, I'll still have the conversation with them, but I'm not going to let them be the stylist A. If they have that attitude, they have that. I don't care how big your book is. I don't need you.
Right.
True that.
And unfortunately, again, you go back to the fear factor for an owner. If you're looking for a stylist to come on board for you to help to pay your bills, you're not running your business correctly.
Yeah.
If I need that $200,000 guy, then I'm in bigger trouble than needing that guy. And that
That's
goes
a
into
good point.
yeah. I mean, it's
So
and then
good.
what happens even when you deal with this and you really dive into this deeper, you'll notice. I mean, I fired people that have had that book and let them go, and the result I've gotten, we've retained probably 80% of the clientele. A lot of times the client is like, oh my God, I felt guilty leaving her, but man, thank God she's gone. Because your client doesn't want that negative mindset either. They're coming to be happy. So it's like, it's all about culture. Like if you can build that culture, and we're not in a perfect world. We all get that stylist that comes in and they become that, and that's the one we have to make the decision though. When do we let them go? But they're the true they're like real numbers. That I'll look at, I'll analyze, and say, hey, listen, are you worth 23 grand to me and you're a pain in my neck? Nope. But if I get rid of that 8 to 10 hours a week of negative, my time burden, and make it 1 or 2, and I'm coaching those people, okay, then my margin goes back up to 50, 60 grand. That's the realization of it is. And I guess that my point is that being a little stronger as a salon owner, and I have a heart. Again, I'm not perfect. I've had the $200,000 styles that was negative that I wasted all this time with, and I eventually got rid of them. But it took me a little longer because I was kept saying, "Oh, maybe they'll get better, maybe they'll get better." But the realization is they're not. So you can cut it quicker, get rid of it quicker.
Yeah.
So I hope
Cut
that kind of
cut
shows
the
you.
cancer out.
Yeah,
Yeah, Sean's right. We got to have you back because I love it that you're a numbers guy, and we definitely need to dive a little deeper. And as we start to end this out, I do have one last class question for you, and I'll let Sean ask the very last question after this. But first of all, where do people find you, and what are some of the programs you offer?
basically, my email is Lou at DeCola Salon. Um, I'm building a landing page right now. Like I said, I just really started doing because I'm not behind the chair anymore. I just really started doing the coaching and speaking a lot more. So that's a direction I'm really kind of I'm going to be heading. Um, but I mean, I do anything from financial consulting. Like I'll go and look at someone's books and say, listen, you need to cut costs here, and that's pretty much should be an accountant's job.
Yeah, you
Not
would hope. You would
you would
hope.
hope, but sometimes they don't take their accountant's advice. And it's like, they're spending this money or whatever it may
Yeah.
be. But more on mentorship and growing a team and
Mm,
basically aligning someone with your values, changing your hiring processes. I mean, I don't have applications. You come in, we have conversations
yeah.
because if we can't conversate, we can't communicate. And what is our business all about? We're a different industry. We're about communication, about building relationships. And if you can't carry a conversation on with my head of education or myself, then I don't want, I really, me personally, you're not what the culture that I'm looking for my team. And you might have other salon owners that strictly look at numbers or finance or want to say, hey, where was this person trained at? Let me see their book, all that stuff there. I'm on the other end. I just did
Hmm.
it today with I just did a review with one of my managers, and I think I have 13 stylists that have started with me as assistants, and now they're all behind the chair at level 1, 2, and 3, different levels,
Wow.
which is which to me builds a
That's
stronger team.
remarkable. Hmm.
And the same thing as your new people coming in. Nobody's above anybody else because they've all worked their way through it. So, um,
Love
you
that.
know,
Yeah. And you said earlier something that I think is going to ring the bell of many salon owners listening to this. And you said if you have to hire someone to keep your doors open, you got bigger problems.
yeah.
What's that number one big problem that you see with salon owners right now that aren't able to build a business?
Well, one I think that probably their product cost is really high, or the rent ratio is really high. Or they. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see when someone opens a salon or starts. And I speak from experience because I bought a salon that a guy spent $2 million fitting the
Mm,
place out, and I bought it
wow.
for $1.
Ouch.
$1.
Oof.
The guy was going out of business, couldn't do it. He had marble everywhere, all this stuff here, and I just took him over. Like, so your aesthetics are important, but don't invest all your money in the beginning on that. Make the money first. So I think
Yep.
that's where opening a salon, that's where it's at. When you're running a salon, I think their overhead, their cost, the rent ratio, if you should run about 5%, 4% would be great. A lot of these, when I see some people, they're running at 10, 15% just on the rent, not including
Oh,
utilities and all this stuff out.
5%. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. If you give me listen, if you're spending 100 grand, $100,000 a year in rent, you know, you you gotta be doing $2 million a year. If you're doing 2 million, you're spending 100.
It's
But
good.
people don't look at that. They'll think that if I'm paying 100,000 in rent and I can do 700,000 or $1 million, it's not real.
Hmm.
That's the number that I try to look at when I'm doing a lease or I'm doing something. Hey, if I'm not 5%, or if I'm going to a new location, I might say, okay, what can I possibly do? Where I might go to 6 or 7, but not in the goal to say, hey, I got 18 chairs, 200,000 a chair, 3.6 million. Okay, the highest I could possibly go would be 140,000 a year in rent, and that's if I'm a creative business, and then I would negotiate my lease as an increase. Start out low and then get there in 5 years to the higher number. But I think that's, and then your back bar fees. I don't have a service charge. I don't charge a service charge on my staff, and I'm still successful because I run a tighter ship. If I can run at 4% of back bar of supplies, I'm okay. Um,
Well, I definitely we'll say we're gonna have you back to finish this conversation because you keep throwing out some numbers that are amazing to hear, especially because we haven't um, really updated a lot of goals or benchmarks or anything. Everything that happened through COVID, everybody just kind of said, just survive. And there wasn't, everything kind of got ballooned up there. So to hear coming from you, 5% rent goal, 4% back bar is huge, especially considering where the cost of goods is going at this point. So to maintain a 4% back bar, how do you look at price increases for your clients and your stylists to keep it within that 4% back bar with the cost of goods rising like they are?
So, you go through so I'll back one thing we just did add, and I think this should be every salon owner should do it right now, would be to make sure that you're putting in your convenience fee in for credit card fees. I actually I pushed back for a long time, but I just implemented it, and it's convenient. Everyone's doing it. And if you're, I mean, I do a lot of volume in credit cards, and my rate's still like 2.3%.
Yeah.
So, some of these smaller places are probably paying 3.5 to 4% for their credit cards. So that's just going out the window. That's if you're doing $100,000 a year, you're losing $4,000 a year just in credit card fees. Put it as a convenience fee, put a 3.5% on it, 3%, whatever your rate is. You don't have to make money on it, but just pass it through. And that just becomes more money, back into your profit margin. Everyone's doing that. The challenge with we're multi-tiered pricing structure. So I haven't really had a price increase across the board in probably a year, but that's probably going to come. And you got to kind of so I just implemented the convenience fee. So I have to time it where I'm not going to raise prices now, because then all of a sudden, you're gouging. I never raise prices when you do a remodel, before or after. Time it where because your client's perception is, I just paid for this. But you can I mean, now's kind of a time too with, all the tariff, all that stuff, all the stuff here, what's real, what's not real, what's coming through, what's not coming through, but it's a language that's out there. So it might be a good time to raise your pricing structure right now, because again, everything else is being raised. Your pushback from your team and from your clientele is, oh my God, your prices gone up again. Well, gas isn't $3, it's $4.95. Your milk's $5.65. Again, we can go a whole other conversation on mentality of what a stylist thinks their client should pay, and they worry about their finances, not their own finances. But that's kind of I would increase the pricing structure. Like if your color's at $5, I use a flat number. If your color's $10 a tube, it goes to 15. You just had a 50% increase in your color cost. So now you have to increase your service, not 50%, but you got to actually be able to absorb the $5, the 50% increase. So I would increase, in your formulation, if your color was in your pricing structure for your color, just say your color is $100 and your tube costs you 10, you double that's 20. Now you got your structure, and now you added 50% higher. Now you're 30. So now your color is maybe 120. Kind of a formulation of recovering. You're not just going to increase what your price increase. You got to make a profit on it. If my color from 10 to 15, I can't go from 100 to 105. You got to go for 100 or 120. You got to, make sure you have your buffer in there. But there's a lot of different, there's so many different trains of thought in that. I know a lot of people are pushing right now, product and labor, splitting it apart. I don't know if you guys heard about that yet, where there's,
Yes.
okay, the colors, $60 and the service was 100 to 160 your total cost. And then paying your stylist 20% commission on the product and the regular commission on the service. I don't like that model, me personally, just because it goes to the mere fact is I used 20 grams of color this time and 30 the next time and 20 the other time. I'm a consistency guy. My mentality is consistency builds stability, builds credibility. If I'm fluctuating my prices all the time, I'm not stable. My credibility loses. That's just kind of one of my own personal internal business models is that. And, there's ways to absorb it by just having a regular, just a flat rate versus splitting it product and labor.
Love it.
But that's just my own, I am not an expert. Somebody can prove me wrong. And so that they'll probably say you can make more money if you product labor it. Then I look at it and say, go back to my owner time burden formula. What's my owner time burden formula going to be worth? Explaining it to every client, to my team members, bringing it down into them, all that stuff there. Did I make money or did I lose money? The intangible, that's kind of like, if you're looking at strictly just black and white numbers on paper, sure, product labor, you're going to make more money. But you can't put the intangible cost on that either. But I do.
Yeah.
My time is valuable. Your team culture is valuable. So
great way to look at it for sure. And like we both said, we will definitely get you scheduled back here again to pick this up and talk more about numbers. So again, thank you so much, Lou, for joining us today. It was an awesome conversation and the start of many more.
It was my pleasure. I'm glad you
Lou.
guys could have me. And we'll talk soon. And you're not going to go down to the show in Orlando, I heard, right? You're not going?
No, we're not there. Yeah. Thanks for doing the podcast with us, Lou. You're awesome.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.